She didn't scream the last time. That's what stays with me. There'd been screams before, of course. That particular brand, sharp and fraying at the edge, equal parts fury and fatigue. They cut through drywall like music through thin paper. But the last time, no scream. Just silence. Thick, vacuumed silence, like someone had turned off the world sound. I heard the refrigerator click. I heard the clock hum. I heard myself breathe once, then again, and I stood there in the hall holding her phone in my hand, trying to understand why everything inside me felt like it was cracking open from the bottom, not the top. She'd gone quiet. That's how I knew it was real. My name is Thomas Grayson. I'm 48 years old. I live in Stamford, Connecticut, and I used to be a structural engineer. My specialty was load analysis, figuring out how much stress a beam or column can take before it gives way. It always felt like a metaphor, even when I didn't want it to be. The idea that everything has a breaking point. Steel, concrete, wood, a marriage, a man. I met Lydia in college, a shared art history elective I hated, and she adored. She had that kind of laugh that made people want to be around her, made professors linger by the podium longer than necessary. We married young, against advice. We were 23, reckless, stupid in love. It held for a while. It really did. I can even tell you the last time I thought she looked at me like she used to. New Year's Eve 2012. She wore a red dress. She touched my hand under the table. Our daughter Maddie was asleep in the other room. That memory feels like a photograph now. Real, but separate from life. Lydia died 3 years ago. Not suddenly. Not in an accident or some visible horror. She died in increments, disappearing over time until all that was left was the outline. Her body was found in a motel off I-95 across the New York border. Room 11113. The coroner's report was blunt. Suicide by overdose. 4 Xanax. Half a bottle of vodka. Wedding ring in her right hand. The police told me she checked in alone. No note. No messages. We buried her on a Tuesday, and something in me never left that grave. People love to say time heals. It doesn't. Time just numbs, like cold water on frostbite. You think you're healing, but you're really just going quiet. I tried all the standard things, grief counseling, group therapy, even meditation. None of it worked. All the faces blurred together. All the voices sounded like recycled Hallmark cards. Only Maddie kept me anchored. She was 17 then, almost 18, a brilliant, emotionally complicated young woman. Took after her mother, passionate, curious, disarmingly intuitive. She barely spoke for weeks after the funeral, walked around like a shell. One day she stood in the living room and asked, "Did Mom seem happy to you?" I couldn't answer her, not honestly, because I didn't know. I hadn't known for a long time, and that was the first clue. It wasn't one thing that set it off. It was the accumulation, the hints you ignore until the pattern becomes undeniable. A few months after we buried Lydia, I was cleaning out the attic when I found an old address book she used to keep in her nightstand. One of those little spiral-bound ones with stickers for birthdays. It was yellowed at the edges, stuffed with papers, some receipts, appointment reminders, post-its. Tucked inside was a hotel folio, a printed receipt, the same motel where they'd found her, same room, dated 11 months before her death. Room 113, 2 nights, 2 entrees charged to the room, a bottle of red wine. Now it's possible she just went there to think. Maybe she needed space. That's what I told myself at first. But Lydia wasn't a runaway type. She didn't just disappear without saying something, not unless she had something to hide. So I started looking. I know what you're thinking. Grief makes people paranoid. You're not wrong. But I wasn't just paranoid. I was precise. I've made a living diagnosing structural faults, tracing hairline fractures to their origin. I approached this the same way. The next clue came from her laptop. She never changed her passwords. Her email was clean. Too clean. No deleted folders. No flagged messages. Nothing suspicious. But her iCloud backup was active. Buried in a forgotten folder were hundreds of text message backups, most to friends, Maddie, her work colleagues. But there was a number, no contact name, just 10 digits, that kept showing up. Late at night, midday breaks, Saturday. Most of the messages were one-sided, deleted from her side, but not all of them. I miss your arms. Next Tuesday still work. Tell me again what you'd do if we had a weekend alone. There it was. Proof. My wife had been having an affair for at least a year, maybe more, and I hadn't noticed. Or worse, I'd noticed and ignored it. Gaslit myself into silence. I didn't tell anyone. Not Maddie. Not a friend. Not a therapist. I just sat with it, like a tumor under my ribcage. I stopped working. Used the savings we'd stacked to buy time. Told clients I was taking a sabbatical. They believed me. Widowers get grace. But I wasn't healing. I was hunting. It took me 3 weeks to trace the number. A few backdoor tools. A few phone pings. I found him. Daniel Kerrigan, 45. Corporate therapist. Used by companies to ease layoffs and workforce trauma. On paper, a family man. Wife. 2 kids. Nice house in New Canaan. I stared at his photo for almost an hour the first time. He didn't look like anything special. Sandy hair. Mild smile. Forgettable. But there was something in his eyes. Something performative. The practiced warmth of someone who'd learned how to mimic empathy without actually feeling it. I started following him. At first just online. His LinkedIn, Facebook, a few old event photos. He'd worked for 3 of Lydia's former employers. Over the last 5 years as a contractor, always floating in the background. I recognized him in a photo from her Christmas party in 2000, standing near the bar, smiling. Eventually I began watching in person. His office was in a professional suite off Bedford Street. I parked down the block every Wednesday and Friday. The days he saw clients, he always wore a navy coat, carried a gray leather folio, walked like a man who thought he was important. I watched him come and go, saw him pick up his son from Little League, watched him hold his wife's hand at a farmer's market. He looked normal, kind, even, and that's what made it worse. He'd gone on with his life, smooth, unbothered, while Lydia, and by extension I, had been the first time I saw him laugh, I nearly got out of the car and attacked him. He was with his daughter, outside a bakery, holding a croissant in one hand and gesturing wildly with the other. I couldn't hear what he said, but she giggled. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead. That image burned. All I could see was Maddie. All I could hear was her asking me, did Mom seem happy? She hadn't been. But she'd lied to all of us. She'd had this entire life behind the curtain, a secret world, tucked into motel rooms and phone calls and stolen lunch. And when it all became too much, she didn't come clean. She didn't face us. She vanished. Kerrigan wasn't the one who'd killed her, but he was the one who'd taught her how to leave. That's what I started to believe. And once I believed that, the plan started forming on its own. At first I told myself I only wanted him to know I knew, to look him in the eye and see if there was guilt, remorse, something human. But deep down I knew I didn't want human. I wanted pain. I wanted justice. Not the kind you get in court, the kind you feel in your bones. It's hard to describe what it feels like, that shift. When grief becomes purpose, when sadness ossifies into strategy. I was calm, calmer than I'd been in a year. I started writing letters, not to send, just drafts, practicing tone, language. One of them was to his wife, another to Maddie, and one, the most dangerous, was to Lydia. I wrote to her like she was still alive, telling her how it felt to find the texts, the receipt, the slow humiliation of it all. I burned that one, but not before I read it aloud. I needed to hear the venom. I needed to know I was still capable of feeling. By late fall I had routines. I knew Kerrigan's schedule. I knew what gym he used, what bar he liked, where he bought groceries. I'd mapped his life like a city planner. There was an intimacy to it, even a perverse tenderness. Watching him read labels in the cereal aisle, seeing him stand in line at the dry cleaner. Normal things, mundane things. And every time I saw him smile I imagined slamming his head into the pavement. I wanted to punish him, but not just with violence. Violence was too easy. I wanted to unwind his life the way he'd unwound mine. So I started, small, but I started. It began with a letter. Typed, clean, anonymous, short. Does your wife know what you did in room 113? I mailed it to his home address on a Tuesday. No return address. Just a clean white envelope in the middle of a normal week. I pictured her, his wife, opening it in their perfect kitchen, eyes narrowing, heartbeat changing tempo. I imagined the cold silence over dinner that night. I imagined him pretending not to understand, pretending it was a mistake. I imagined her watching his eyes as he lied, and that was only the start. The next week, I mailed another. A photocopy of the motel receipt, no explanation, just the numbers, the dates, the damning geography of betrayal. Then came the pictures, the screenshots of Lydia's messages, the one that said, "I wish I could wake up beside you instead." I blurred the sender's name, but not the timestamp, let her connect the dots. She left him 12 days later. I know because I was there. Watched her storm out with the kids, dragging a red suitcase down the porch stairs. He followed, yelling her name. She didn't turn around. The kids didn't look back. The dog barked like it knew what this meant. And Daniel Kerrigan, therapist, husband destroyer, just stood there barefoot in his driveway, watching everything he loved drive away. I should have felt something then. Triumph, maybe. Justice. I felt nothing. Just cold. He stopped going to work. His routines evaporated. The navy coat was replaced with a hooded sweatshirt. The neat hair grew shaggy, unkempt. Some days I'd see him walking alone near the park, hands deep in his pockets, as if hiding from the world. It wasn't enough. I wasn't done. I needed to look him in the face, needed to speak. So I crafted a third letter. This time just 3 words. "You killed her." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. He would know. I waited 2 nights, 3. Then, on a Thursday, I found a photo on my own doorstep. A grainy, zoomed-in shot of me, sitting in my car outside his house, taken from behind, taken close. It had been placed in a manila envelope, no note, no markings. I stood there, in my hallway staring at it like it might start bleeding. He knew I'd been watching, and he was watching back. That night, I didn't sleep, sat on the couch with a hammer in one hand, my phone in the other. Every creak in the walls, every tick of the pipes, sounded like a footstep. I waited for something more, a break-in, the police, retaliation, but nothing happened, not for a week. Then Maddie called. I hadn't heard her voice in months. I answered on the second ring. "Dad," she said. "Did you send me something?" Her voice was sharp, not angry, scared. "No," I said. "What kind of something?" "A package, no return label, just photos of Mom with some man in a motel bed." My stomach turned. My voice came out hoarse. "I didn't send you that, Maddie." A long silence. "Did you know about them?" "I found out after she died." Another silence. "I don't think I want to talk to you right now." Then the click of disconnection, and a silence louder than the one in that motel room. Kerrigan had sent the photos to my daughter. He was fighting back, and for the first time since Lydia died, I felt afraid of what I'd become, afraid of how far this would go, afraid that maybe I'd misjudged everything, but by then I was too deep to stop. The next week I bought a gun, not from the streets, from a proper store. I passed the background check, 48, college educated, no criminal record. I smiled at the clerk. He handed me a matte black Glock 17 in a plastic case like it was a pair of shoes. I kept it in my glove box, didn't take it out, just drove with it beside me like a sleeping wolf. I watched Kerrigan fall apart. He started drinking. I saw him get kicked out of a bar. He stopped shaving. I followed him to a liquor store one night, and watched him argue with the clerk, slurring his speech. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? This was justice, wasn't it? I thought about Lydia constantly, about what she'd known. Had she told him she was married? Had she lied to him the way she'd lied to me? I went back to the texts. One message stood out. "He's fragile. I have to wait until Maddie graduates." It wasn't clear who he was. Me, Kerrigan, was I the fragile one? I reread every line she'd written to him, every half-deleted message, every secret, and slowly, something awful started to bloom inside me. Doubt. What if she had lied to him too? What if he didn't know she was still with me? What if he loved her? What if he was the only one who ever really saw her? That thought didn't comfort me. It undid me, because if it was true then I wasn't the victim. I was the shadow she lived beneath. I drove to his house the next night, sat across the street, engine off, midnight, 1, 2, at 2:13 a.m., his front door open. He stepped outside in socks and a t-shirt, lit by the pale blue of his porch lamp. He looked different now, thinner, hollowed out, like the violence had already happened. And then, without looking, he walked straight toward my car.
I froze. He stopped a foot away from my window. I rolled it down. We stared at each other for a moment that felt like a held breath. "You win," he said, voice raspy, eyes sunken. "I've lost everything. My family, my job, my mind. So go ahead, Tom. Do what you came to do." He knew my name. Of course he did. I stepped out of the car. We stood inches apart. Then I punched him. Once, twice, 3 times. He didn't fight back. He just took it, like he wanted it, like it was his confession. I drew the gun, pressed it against his chest. He looked at me and whispered. I didn't know she was going to kill herself. Silence. Then another whisper. "She told me you were separated." I stared at him. "What?" "She said you were still living together for your daughter. Said she didn't want to hurt Maddie. Said you'd fall apart if she left. You believed her. She lied to both of us." He was crying now. Real tears. "I loved her. I really loved her." I lowered the gun, and I saw it then. Not the monster I'd built in my mind. Just another broken man. Just another fool who'd been used. I drove home, left him bleeding on the sidewalk. Haven't seen him since. The police never came. Maddie never called again. She sent one letter. No greeting. No sign-off. "Don't ever contact me again." I know everything now. I don't know what she knows. I don't know who told her. All I know is she's gone. Lydia's gone. Kerrigan's a ghost. And I'm still here, sitting in a house that feels like a coffin, sleeping in a bed that feels like a grave, wondering what I missed, what I destroyed, what I became. This wasn't justice. This wasn't closure. It was just another kind of ruin. The slow, precise collapse of a man who thought love was something you could measure. I was wrong. You can't measure love. You can only feel its absence and live with the echo.
I tried to go back to work, not because I wanted to, because I had to. The savings were gone, the bills were mounting, and the house, once filled with color and sound, now felt like a waiting room for the dead. I returned to the office 3 months after the night with Kerrigan. My desk looked smaller, the windows dimmer. No one said anything. Not really. A few nods. One guy clapped my shoulder like we'd just survived a war together. I sat at my desk and stared at the wall for 40 minutes. Then I opened a new file and tried to do math. It didn't come, not like it used to. The numbers felt cold, meaningless. Calculations used to bring me peace, the certainty, the logic. Now I couldn't even trust the measurements. Everything felt slightly off, like the walls had shifted half an inch in the night. I made it 4 days, then I called in and never returned. I told myself I'd freelance. I told myself I'd fix the garage door, organize the attic, repaint the kitchen. I told myself a lot of things. But all I did was sit in Lydia's old reading chair and replay everything, like an old VHS tape, worn and flickering. The motel, the receipt, the letters, the gun. Kerrigan's blood on my knuckles, Maddie's silence. The guilt came in waves, not guilt for what I'd done, guilt for what I hadn't. I never asked Lydia why, never demanded the truth when I still had the chance. I played polite husband, stayed in my lane, pretended not to notice her absences, her quiet withdrawals, the way she flinched at my touch that final year. I thought I was being patient, thought I was giving her space. Turns out I was just letting her leave. One night I found an old voicemail from her on my phone, buried in a backup from 2019. I don't remember saving it. Her voice was soft. "Hey, just wanted to say, thanks for doing the dishes. I know that sounds stupid, but it meant a lot today. That's all. Love you." 16 seconds. It broke me. I played it 17 times that night. I couldn't reconcile the voice in that message with the woman in room 113. I started going back through her things. What little remained. A few books, some jewelry, the scarf she wore on cold days. In one of her cookbooks I found a folded napkin with writing on it. Her handwriting, small, clean, fragile. "I want to disappear without hurting anyone, but I don't think that's possible." I stared at that line for hours, then I burned it. I saw Kerrigan once more. It was accidental. Late fall, I was at a gas station off the Merritt Parkway, grabbing cigarettes. I hadn't smoked in 20 years. He walked in as I was walking out. We both froze. He looked worse than before, thinner, paler, hair almost white at the edges. He was shaking,
maybe from withdrawal, maybe from fear. We stood there for what felt like forever. Then he whispered, "How's your daughter?" I didn't answer. He nodded, like that made sense. "Mine won't talk to me either," he said. Then he walked past me and out the door. I never saw him again, but his voice stayed. "Mine won't talk to me either." I wondered if we were the same man now, two ghosts trailing the women we broke, or the women who broke us. It didn't matter. There was no difference anymore. I had the gun in my mouth once, just once, 2 months after Maddie's letter. It wasn't dramatic. No note, no message, just the garage, the cold floor, the sound of the rain. I remember the taste of the metal, how clinical it felt, sterile, not heavy, not hot, just final. I thought of Lydia, of the motel, of the way Maddie looked at me the day of the funeral, like I was someone she'd never really seen before. I pulled the gun out of my mouth, didn't cry, didn't scream, just sat there and waited for the sun to come up. It never really did, only gray, only more waiting. A month later, I got a message, anonymous number. She told me she was going to leave you after graduation. No signature. I stared at it for an hour. Was it him, or someone else? I tried to trace it. Nothing. Then I realized it didn't matter, because if it was true, then I never really had Lydia at all. Just a version of her, a projection, a relic of a man who never asked questions he didn't want answered. And if it was false, well, that was worse, because it meant the lies were still happening, even after death. The dead don't lie, but grief does. People stopped calling. Friends, extended family, they gave up. Can't blame them. I wasn't someone you could comfort. I'd become radioactive. Everything I touched twisted. My own mother sent a card for my birthday that just said, "I hope you find peace someday." Peace, as if that was possible. I didn't want peace. I wanted understanding. I wanted the truth. I wanted to know why Lydia chose oblivion over confession, why Kerrigan didn't stop her, why Maddie will never forgive me. I wanted someone to say, "Here is the moment everything broke," but no one ever does. There's no single fracture, just the accumulation of strain, the slow failure of unseen joints. Some nights I still hear Lydia's voice, not the real one, the remembered one. She's always in the kitchen, always saying something mundane. "Tom, we're out of coffee," or, "Can you help me with this zipper?" Small things, harmless things, memories without blood. But I know the other voice is waiting, the motel voice, the one that said goodbye without saying a word. I'm just not ready to hear it yet. Maybe one day, maybe never. I don't pray. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just wait, because all grief is waiting, isn't it? Waiting to forget, or to be remembered, and I'm not sure which is worse.
I stopped using her name. At first it was unintentional, just a soft omission in conversation. My wife instead of Lydia. Then it became a pattern. In my head she stopped being a person. She became an event, a fault line, the collapse everything else fell into. And yet her presence infected everything. When I opened the refrigerator, I remembered the yogurt she liked, raspberry, always half-eaten. When I walked past the garden, I saw the spot where she cried once, crouched in the dirt, hands full of weeds, face tilted away from me so I couldn't see the truth behind it. When I tried to sleep, I remembered how she used to read until her eyelids fluttered, and how the lamp stayed on long after she drifted. I wasn't haunted, I was possessed. I thought about Kerrigan more often after that final encounter, not because I pitied him, but because I couldn't decide what he was. A man used, a manipulator, another idiot who thought love meant secrecy, or maybe he was me, just a few wrong steps ahead. I kept wondering what Lydia told him. I imagined their conversations, scripted them like plays, scenes in a motel room. "He doesn't touch me anymore. He never listens. It's not his fault, but I can't breathe in that house." I imagined his voice in return. "You deserve better. You're not broken. You're allowed to want more." These aren't fantasy, they're forensic reconstructions, trying to make sense of the crime scene. But the truth is, maybe there was no villain. Maybe she loved us both. Or maybe she loved neither of us and just wanted to disappear. There's no worse wound than ambiguity, because you can't heal from a question. You just carry it until it hollows you out. Maddie hasn't spoken to me in over a year. No calls, no texts, just a silent widening distance. I check her Instagram sometimes. She doesn't block me. That's the cruelty of it. I can still see her smile, her travels, her friends.
She lives out loud while I wither in the quiet. She posted a photo last month, her and another girl, arms around each other, wind in their hair, some city skyline behind them. Her caption said, "Found family." That cut deeper than anything else. Found family, meaning not you, not the man who raised me, not the man who sat through every flu, every recital, every fucking parent-teacher conference, just a shadow she escaped. I don't blame her, but God, it hurts. There was one last message, 3 months ago, email, no name, one attachment, a video. It was surveillance footage from the motel parking lot. Lydia, walking toward the entrance, alone, no suitcase, just her purse. She moved slowly, like her body already knew what it was about to do. At the door she paused, looked over her shoulder, then went inside. That was it. 23 seconds. But I watched it 70 times, hoping for something, a sign, a hesitation, a reason. There was nothing, only the stillness of her shoulders, the finality of her back. I forwarded it to myself, saved it in 3 places. Sometimes I open it just to remember she was real. You want to know what revenge really is? It's a mirror, and when you stare into it long enough, you stop seeing the person who hurt you. You see the thing you became to hurt them back. You see your own eyes go feral. You see your hands stop trembling. You see a version of yourself that you can't justify. And the worst part, you don't even feel regret. You feel clarity. I don't know how this ends. Not really. People keep asking when I'm coming back to life, but there is no coming back. There's only forward, and forward is a fog. I still have the gun, still in the glove box. Haven't touched it in weeks, but it's there, like an option, like a question mark at the end of a sentence no one wants to read aloud. I walk the neighborhood sometime, wave to people who don't know me. They smile. I nod. No one sees the ruin. No one hears the collapse still echoing behind my teeth. They think I'm healing. They think I'm surviving. But I'm just counting seconds between silences. That's what grief becomes. Not sadness, not rage, just measurement. One more moment, then another, until the last. And you, if you're still reading this, still listening to the voice buried beneath all these years, you think you wouldn't do what I did. You think you'd walk away. You think you'd choose peace. But let me ask you, what would you do if the love of your life died in another man's bed? What would you do if your child turned her back on you forever? What would you do when the truth wasn't enough, and silence became the only thing that answered you? I used to believe in justice. Now, I believe in gravity, and everything that falls with it.